What is going on, everyone? Badger here. Make sure to like and sub, and let's get into this. I will put in the channel description the links to the other two videos we did about all of this. But the long and short of it is a writer of the WGA sent a letter to Film Threat, and it was sort of an open letter to the WGA, just exposing all of their really racist policies, thoughts, views, their mantras, one of them being male and pale is stale. And here we have Chris Gore, who is responding to it. And he's obviously the owner and operator of Film Threat. Catch his streams with Alan Ng on Film Threat on YouTube. Please do go to his website and his YouTube channel. We will link those for you in the video descriptions. But this is really important. This is the important stuff. Let's get into this. So this is Chris Gore. The only constant in entertainment is change. Industry veterans understand that dramatic pivots in the way that Hollywood does business are the only thing that can be counted upon. But recent shifts have veteran writers concerned. Part of this has to do with the WGA's requirement that new members check boxes to identify themselves so that this data may be used in the hiring process. A recent open letter to the Writers Guild of America, written by a WGA member, is saying out loud what many in the industry fear to say. And that is that radical voices have taken hold in Hollywood and are more concerned with pushing ideology and messaging rather than entertaining an audience. Now, that is exactly what we have all been screaming for years in the top of our lungs. All of this has just been confirming what we have all known, feared, and been trying to convey. Anyway, sorry, that's me. Continues. As a result, the money generated by the industry has seen a remarkably noticeable drop. The rise of the term flopbuster, otherwise known as get woke, go broke, flopbuster, in response to so many films like Indiana Jones and The Dial of Destiny underperforming at the box office, seems to be directly related to mainstream audiences' wholesale rejection of the over messaging they see hijacking entertainment. Not to mention the destruction of intellectual property that normally performs successfully with fans. Box office receipts for films like The Marvels, among others, have writers questioning the wisdom of pushing identity / the message over storytelling with a broad appeal. And again, in this context, this is what woke is, pushing that fucking message and agenda over the story and the characters. And he even says here, directly related to the mainstream audience. That's the mythical fucking modern audience they always talk about that then never shows up because they don't exist. Because the mainstream audience and the modern audience aren't the same thing, at least not in the way they direct it to. Continuing, the mainstream industry trades have yet to weigh in on this open letter. However, the story has resulted in a flood of emails sent to Film Threat. These correspondents paint a picture of an industry where fear of speaking out could result in one being blacklisted and as problematic. You must adhere to this new ideology or face the prospect of unemployment forever. A phrase we heard over and over again is this: male and pale is stale. If one were to reword this statement another way, it may result in if you said male and black is whack, you would be hung from a tree unironically in Minecraft. But this view is widely accepted all over Hollywood. Like a mantra, male and pale is stale is driving the type of films and TV shows that get made. What industry outsiders may not understand is that Hollywood is a freelance business where work is scarce, and in the current day, one must constantly demonstrate allegiance to specific ideals or face the prospect of never working. The fear is palpable and a dominant force hanging over their heads of those who wish to simply make a living working in entertainment. And by the way, this extends to a lot of actors and actresses who don't have a thought in their head, but they come in parrot these views of what is socially acceptable because they want to keep working. Here we continuing. These emails sent to Film Threat have been edited to protect the identities of those who wish to speak out, all of which requested to remain anonymous. The letters came from Emmy and Oscar nominated talents working at various levels in the industry. Additionally, letters that were repetitive or simply echoed points already stated have been left out. What follows are emails sent to Film Threat in response to the open letter to the WGA. Whatever conclusions you wish, Draw whatever conclusions you wish, but one thing is certain: Hollywood is changing, and many feel it may not be for the best. I'm just going to see. I'm probably not going to go through all the emails, obviously, but let's see. Let's just read one, and then we'll see how good these are. If you stayed with me this long, thank you. This is, I am a WGA member and wish to be anonymous. My email isn't real, as I don't want to accidentally give up an IP address and end up on a modern blacklist. I have a few stories that illustrate the hostility to non-diverse writers that may be of interest. Come on, Chris. 1. Writers hired on comic book shows are told it's a positive that they are unfamiliar with the original comic book and not a fan of the existing IP because they want to do a modern take on the material relevant today. That has already been confirmed. We have heard that about Marvel specifically, that if you try to get hired and you go in there trying to flaunt your comic book knowledge, you will not get hired and they say it's because modern new take on the material relevant to today. And what they mean is we don't want anyone with authority or knowledge that could actually challenge us on our bullshit. This is unfortunately the challenge and what happened with Henry. He knew all the Witcher books and he could intimately tell you how they were messing it up, and that's why they hated him. Number 2, writers are asked, why this story today? How is it relevant politically today to the existing narrative they're pushing on our culture? And B, why are you the person to tell it? Because I have talent and wrote it is not a valid answer. What is a valid answer is because I am a member of this group or class, and only we can tell our own stories. Basically, you can only write a story about Black people. If you're Black, you can only write a story about Black gay people. If you are Black and gay, this is what that fucking checklist is, so that if they see you wrote a script and you aren't what you're writing about, well, you don't get to make it. 3, this leads to a heads we win, tails you lose game, where if you don't include diverse characters, you're dinged for having all white, non-diverse cast, regardless of the time or place of the story or historical accuracy. And if you do have a diverse case, race or gender, then you are guilty of cultural appropriation. This means that unless you are, for example, African American, you are not allowed to tell a story about an African American, which is what I just said, or disabled or LGBTQ. Oh, Jesus. Unless you are that specific group. Yeah, there's a bias towards the 2 for or 3 for hire. Being gay, for example, isn't enough now. You have to be gay, African American, Latin X, which no one actually uses, undocumented, unhoused, differently abled. Then on the DEI scorecard, they have a 2 or 3 positive. Think of Echo. She had like 3 or 4. To give you an idea of how competitive things are, for only Murders in the Building, there was word a staff position was available. This is the lowest rung writing position. They received 450 scripts as writing examples for this one job. A manager told me these jobs would typically go to a BIPOC writer, but the show decided not to hire anyone or to go in another direction. 5, the WGA has a diversity program. Okay. They read some of this on, I believe, last Tuesday night or last Real BBC. This is the one that was like, holy shit. This is why these writer rooms are filled with people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. The WGA has a diversity program where the guild pays for the diversity hire salary. Most of these writers aren't picked up after the free ride expires. Many of these writers, hired only for diversity purposes, feel obligated to push stories that reflect the specific box they checked. So a transgender writer will be pitching stories exclusively about that experience. And by the way, let's say you are one of the actual few transgendered people and you do, with real talent, make it that far. How fucking limiting would it be to be like, by the way, you can only tell stories about trans people. You're not allowed to write about anything else. This is, Now I'm in favor of, this is the writer. Now I'm in favor of diversity in general, especially for stories where it makes sense. There was a notable show about the deaf community that amazingly didn't have a single deaf writer on the writing staff. Instead, they relied on, Echo did not have one deaf writer on the writing staff. That's likely reduced the authenticity, and they lost out on many unique deaf stories. This was shown by the recent excellent film Coda. We want original, authentic, and diverse stories, but they can't check They can't just check boxes. They must tell a story about a protagonist who overcomes obstacles, pursues goals, internal and external, and has an arc to grow with. And that's exactly what we were screaming about with Sokka in the last Avatars. We've learned they removed a key element of his personality, which then leads on to this character arc growth, which they keep neutering out of us. Having people who aren't fans of the IP result in a product rather, that has no respect to the existing. Where have you heard that? No respect to the existing fans. And then when fans complain, they are insulted as toxic. That is the entirety of the Star Wars group. That is the entirety of most Marvel writers. That's it. This is the whole name of the game. This is it, folks. What company would make a product that insults the consumers? Disney. Disney would. Detective Comics would. Rocksteady just did it with their video game where they killed all of the Justice League in graphic detail, including Flash being pissed on. What's also not being discussed is the anti-Semitism behind much of the push for diversity. Jews are classified as whites and thus not a minority, despite being 2% of the population and historically victims of mistreatment and genocide. The mantra is, male and pale is stale. Out with the old order and in with the new. Anyone who questions the new orthodoxy will, of course, be denounced as not promoting a diverse workplace, or worst, racist. The system encourages cry bullies, those who complain of oppression as a means of moving up the ladder, push out someone higher up the chain and move on. When John Lasseter was forced, and we covered that in detail, when John Lasseter was forced out for allegedly unrequested hugging, yes, hugging, it was asked, can we get a woman to run this place? And that is exactly what happened. If you check out Creativity's Vanguard, he did a whole story about it, how that woman has been found. I believe her name is Jennifer Lee. This creates an incentive system for complaining about slights, perceived slights, or microaggressions. And once these are documented by HR, some corrective action must be taken. Training, reprimand, and the person who complained now can't be fired or it'd be retaliatory. Writer rooms have historically been a freewheeling place for spitballing ideas and jokes. Now folks are on eggshells for fear of offending DEI standards, which are forever shifting. The Oscar diversity standards have made a number of films ineligible to qualify for Best Picture. No glaring omissions this year, but a film such as Dunkirk would not be eligible as there are just too many white people in it. And, I think I'm going to leave it right there. If you want to see more of these, go to Film Threat. You can read them for yourself. You're getting the idea. The WGA, Disney, Hollywood, all of them, pick one. They have been completely infested by woke mind virus. That is what Elon calls it. And that's what this is. It is a woke mind. It is a mind virus that lets people convince themselves that what they're doing isn't racist, sexist, and divisive, but it is all of those things. And what's worse is they think they're doing good when really they are doing evil. And that right there is the true end game. So let me know what you think of this in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we need to put all the light on this as possible. Whoa, it's scary times. We'll see you on the next one.